Hello and welcome to an emergency episode of Inside the Groove. What's the emergency? Well, Madonna has surprised us all with a 20th anniversary edition of Confessions. Well, it's not that exciting because there isn't a huge amount of new stuff on it and it's streaming only. But me, Peter and Jonathan decided to get together, so to speak, to talk about it because, well, it's one of my favourite albums. 20 years is a big anniversary. And here we are. And we're once again on video. So if you're following us on YouTube, you can see us. And if you can't see us, I'm joined by Peter Falloon, who's a graphic designer. Hi, Peter.
Hello. Very nice to see you both.
And, of course, the wonderful Jonathan Daniel Price, JDP to us, who is a fashion photographer. Hey, JDP.
That's me. Hello.
How are you both? Have you been listening to Confessions lots?
Actually, no, but it's, there's been a lot of big releases this week, so not yet. But I did listen to a few of the remixes only. Confessions is on rotation for me quite frequently, though.
There's so much new music out at the moment. I haven't even got around to listening to the Ali X album at the moment. I love Ali X. And of course, between this episode and our last episode, Lily Allen surprised us all with an incredible album. Have either of you listened to it?
Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it.
Not a Lily Allen fan, still.
No, I'm not, Peter. I'm not a Lily Allen fan. Don't let that put you off. I find her quite irritating. It's an incredible piece of art. It really is.
I might give it a listen, but I haven't forgiven her for her cover of Fog on the Tyne.
I think we have to. If we can forgive Madonna for Hey You, we can forgive Lily Allen for Fog on the Tyne, I think.
I have listened to it a lot because this is I know that you could put the CD in, but I don't have a CD player. Having the full mix back, that's been a revelation.
So on Thursday, it was a surprise. It wasn't even announced by Madonna's official people. A few fans found out the information and put it out there that a 20th anniversary edition of Confessions was coming to streaming only. And it was already showing in advance on Spotify. And we all got very excited. There's nothing new on it. There's nothing that we haven't heard before. And there's some things that could have gone on it. So I don't want to start by being disappointed. Hey, it's a surprise. It's something that we weren't expecting. And actually, I think it's quite a nice release that they've done. And we always want more, don't we? We always want things that we don't already have. But yeah, it's great. We've got the 3 extra tracks that were either released as B-sides or a fan-only release or a special edition release. And we've got some remixes. We've got some really good remixes as well, including the brilliant Pet Shop Boys version of Sorry, which is just like one of their best remixes of anything, and a really great Madonna mix. It's absolutely fantastic. So how did Confessions come about? Well, you will have all listened to, I'm sure, our Confessions episode, which we did a couple of years ago now. I think it was back in 2022. The three of us talked in detail about Confessions. So I don't want to bore anybody who might have been listening to that recently. And if you haven't, you should. So basically, where was Madonna when Confessions came about? She'd done the reinvention tour, as we know, and I think she may have recorded 1 or 2 things on the road. Certainly, it seems like a version of I Love New York was recorded with Stuart Price and Monty Pittman on guitars. And that sort of rocky version is heard in I'm Going to Tell You a Secret. It's really good. And if you remember what music was like, certainly in the UK at the time, rocky indie stuff was quite in. We had things like Franz Ferdinand. We were getting tracks from The Hives and White Stripes, and even bands like Girls Aloud were being quite rocky with what they were doing. So it very much felt that could be a direction Madonna was going to go in. She went far more disco than we could have ever dreamt of or wished for. But she was also in the midst of doing 2 musicals. One was a 20s inspired musical that she was doing with Patrick Leonard called Hello Suckers. That never came to fruition, unfortunately. I would have loved to have known what could have happened there. I mean, she did write a few songs, original songs with him. There's one song called Curtain and a couple of cover versions. We've never heard any of those. Who knows if one day we might. Separately, she was doing music for another project with French director Luc Besson. And this was about a woman that was traveling through time throughout the 20th century. And so she started recording a few songs for that. Apparently, she then read the script and decided that she didn't want to do it. So love to know the inside story on that one. But she was left with some remnants of some recordings that she'd done with Pat and with Mirwais. And of course, ready to do a new album. Now, we all know that American Life hadn't done well commercially, and in fact, her star had been slightly tarnished in the US because she had been outspoken about the Gulf War or conflict, as it were. She was very conscious of that. Madonna's never had any regrets, but I think when she had threats against her children, that was when she decided she was going to do something different. And the album is brilliant. I think it's a fan favorite. We all love American Life. But it commercially didn't do so well as Music and Ray of Light had done beforehand. So I think there was an attempt by Madonna to do something much more commercial. Peter, you've got something to say here.
There's a brilliant clip at the time, actually, where she's being interviewed at the release of Confessions, and the journalist says to her, "Your last 3 albums have been disastrous, not a success." And she just picks them off one by one and goes, No, I think you'll find American Life didn't sell so well, but Music and Ray of Light, I think they did pretty well.
Yeah.
I love that little...
I love anything where Madonna's being a Madonna fan.
Yeah.
And she's quoting what the rest of us would quote and stuff.
Yeah.
How she doesn't manage to lose her temper with that journalist, I don't know. But
yeah.
And with hindsight, Confessions did fantastically around the entire globe, apart from sort of Northern America or the States, certainly, because that sound was a bit ahead of its time for the US, possibly. And we know that only in a few years' time, that sort of straightforward housey, poppy, disco sound would be big. Dare I say that Lady Gaga came back with it with things like Just Dance, and it was huge. But Madonna was ahead of the curve for the States anyway. So although the album did peak at number 2 in the States, it's considered that Confessions was a bit of a failure over there. But hey, for the rest of us, and certainly for our fan base, we love it. It's everything we wanted from Madonna at the time. And it's funny because we're talking about it lots lately because we know that she's doing Confessions 2, whatever that may be. That's what she's been calling it. Whether or not that's what it actually is, I don't know. But I'm very excited about it. I've been revisiting Confessions, loving it very much, and of course now we have that non-stop version on streaming for the first time, where all the songs segue into each other. I can remember the first time I heard Confessions was at a listening party held by a record company in London. I think it was Soho Hotel. And very excited to hear the album. I was more excited because an ex of mine was there, and I was going to tell him that I was with somebody new, which I did, and he really didn't care. But I'd been excited about it. But of course, hearing Confessions about a week, I think it was, before the release was fantastic. Peter, can you remember the first time you heard Confessions?
Have more vivid memories of the actual single. Albums I always find hard to pinpoint because once you've heard them, they go into the ether, don't they? But the first time that I heard Hung Up, I just caught the end of it on the radio, and because I'd not sort of been aware that there was a comeback pending, was then frantic, trying to find this song, because I'd literally only heard probably the last 30 seconds, not realizing it was her, and then the DJ saying, "Oh, and that was a new one from Madonna." I was like, "What the?" And then rushed home that night, and the video was on MTV, and it's back in the days where I had a Sky Plus box, and so you could record, and so I recorded that immediately so that I could watch every single frame of it. And it was still in the time where I hadn't quite worn down my partner to be a Madonna fan. And he still smoked, and I wouldn't allow him to smoke in the house. So every time he went out, I knew I had 5 minutes to play this bloody video. And he'd always come in just at the final closing bit of it, and I'd have it on full volume. And he'd been able to hear it out on the stoop anyway. So yeah, my overarching memory is that I ground him down into loving this Madonna song. But I think the ABBA sample is because I think he, at that point, would have been more of an ABBA fan than he would have been a Madonna fan. So yeah, I think it was the combination that ground him into the floor.
It's funny because I'm a huge ABBA fan. In some ways, I'm a bigger ABBA fan than I am Madonna. I mean, they're two different things. So for me, it could be wonderful. There's something about it that makes me slightly uncomfortable. But the way that I've sold it to myself is the fact that it's not even the best bit of an ABBA song. It's not even the vocal or the chorus or something. It's just a little musical interlude. And they can, she can take that little bit of an ABBA song and sort of turn it into an incredible Madonna song.
And didn't realise, but It's only because more information's come to light recently.
Hmm.
I didn't know that it already existed in Stuart's set, so
Yeah.
it was something that he'd created prior to Madonna asking, and then when she was in the studio with him and just said, "Do you have anything that's like ABBA on speed?" He was like, "Oh, yes, I do." So
Funny that.
amazing.
Yeah, so he'd done a version of it where he'd kind of clipped that bit and looped it and put a ticking sound on it as well. And he had it ready to go. And interestingly, apparently when they were recording the album, Confessions, he would get together some dub mixes of the songs and play them out in his club nights in Ibiza and Australia even, and video the crowd's reaction and send it to Madonna, who would then, of being Madonna, would make notes. And then they would make changes to it. So can you imagine that, going to see Stuart? I mean, I was a big Stuart Price fan at the time, although um, he hadn't done a huge amount of stuff other than his own and Zoot Woman and stuff, but his remixes were brilliant. So imagine going to one of his DJ sets and hearing something that would later be on a Madonna
Well,
record.
he was sort of having that moment, wasn't he? Because it was the same. I think just before they recorded together, it was that was it Honda advert with the Transformer car with the
That's right.
Rev Rhythms Digital, and so he was like very on vogue and was sort of cutting edge. So it was then knowing that those two names were connected was very exciting.
Well, he'd been musical director on her previous two tours as well, so there was a connection there anyway. Jonathan, were you alive when Confessions first came out?
Well, actually, age is a significant part for me now in this era because I was 17 and in first year of university. So, of course, a very formative part of anyone's life. And you're sort of at an age, or for me, when you're very conscious of trying to become culturally aware and sort of pick up a lot of underground and fresh ideas. And despite Madonna being such a mainstream artist, there was, from my perspective at the time, my memory thinks it felt exciting. It felt like there was something coming. And I feel like I recall the video premiering on Channel 4, perhaps. I didn't have Sky or anything. I feel like I remember waiting up to view it. And I remember the scenes in LA and wondering where they shot and seeing the underground. And then I recall I worked in retail at the time, walking to HMV and seeing huge posters in the window and just inspecting the photos and thinking about how they shot it and, writing the date down of when it was coming out. And then I bought the vinyl. I was just starting to build a collection. And I've looked since, and it was $2.99 for a 12-inch vinyl, not for the
Wow.
album, the single. But even now,
Wow.
like a single for a 12-inch would not be that price. And I've got all of the singles on 12-inch from Confessions, and they're all that price. And so, yeah, it felt very significant. There was this club night in Glasgow that was in an old Scottish country dancing hall. So it has like tartan all over the walls. And once a month, there was a gay night called Utter Gutter. It was £10. And I thought £10 was extortionate, but it was like the coolest night to go to. And I remember hearing it there for the first time. And it was playing just as me and my best friend were coming up the stairs. And we were like, run, run, run. We got to get hung up. And so there's lots of lovely memories around that time, obviously. And to be a Madonna fan and to have obviously observed American life. And I kind of liked that I was still a fan and other people weren't enjoying it in the mainstream. But then to see the reaction of it being so well loved, I was very, very happy about that. And yeah, also, you think back and in some ways I feel it's not that long ago, but then you think of specifics of the time. And one of my memories from the time I was thinking about this is in the lead up, seeing a lot of paparazzi photos of her in Heat magazine, which is an indicator of me that the
Yeah.
times have changed and it's no longer a Heat magazine world. But in 2005, it was popping.
Indeed. I'd love to be a fly on the wall now and look back a little twink JTP turning up at this nightclub utterly
Bleach blonde
guttily.
hair, leather jacket. Yeah.
I think it was the first time, sorry, the last time that Rollout was how she was used to in the rest of her career. So it's the last time that it fulfilled that same format of lead single, big video release, then the album, lots of TV, lots of interviews, no digital. Like we were still early years of iTunes, Spotify was a dream. So it was still very physical and product led and TV appearances. I think she even did two of the like award show performances. So it's like that's the last time that I think she mastered that format through the 80s into the 90s. And this was the last execution of it where I think it was unhindered. So like the next couple of projects were not as coherent as this, because and I think that went for all artists that were a little bit legacy. So to me, this was the last time that she had that old school 1980s, 1990s Madonna, this is how you do it, I lead the way. And then I think that for me is the reason that it still resonates so powerfully with me, because it still gave me the goosebumps and still had that like triumphant arrival.
And not just that they did it. I feel in the UK anyway, it worked. It
Yeah,
felt she was everywhere.
yeah. I mean, she was on Parkinson. I mean, we don't even have a chat show like that really anymore. An in-depth 1 hour discussion with one person. We're not allowed to stay tuned for that long.
It's interesting you say about it being old school, which it was, and I completely agree with you. But I think at the time, and even now, it's one of the highest digital sales ever for Hung Up. It was like the first of that sort of new sort of thing where the music industry hadn't jumped on to streaming or the possibilities of digital, and suddenly clawed themselves back into it, and so Hung Up became part of that. But it's really true what you say, that every release since, with perhaps the exception of Madam X, has felt messy, and I think that's because the rules have changed. So we've had leaks. It's taken a while for people to work out what a campaign should be, because even just before Confessions was released, you go back to 2003, and Beyonce, I think Crazy in Love went to radio something like 17 weeks before it was available, because that was the thing they were trying. You could only hear it on radio for like 3-4 months, which feels crazy now, but that was just one of the ways that they were trying to work out how to do it. And of course, what's happened now is the music industry has worked out how to make money, and that's through vinyl. And they're not making the sums they were before, but they are making money again. They're certainly charging a lot more than $2.99 for a 12-inch record. So I think you're seeing album releases by, I think of the other girlies that we all follow, like Kylie and dare I say Lady Gaga, etc. Their most recent campaigns have been really coherent. And so I've got good hopes that Madonna's will be, although I'm saying that with a slight smile, because we love her, but the releases that have happened over the last year or so have not been smooth. But fingers crossed they will be. But this was a great release. This got, we found out about it the day before, and then it suddenly turned up on streaming, and it's a nice little package.
It's very similar to what happened with Like a Prayer, but it's irritating because they're two of my favourites. So I do want vast, elaborate box sets and additionals, and So it's very in keeping with the 30th anniversary for Like a Prayer.
There's so much extra that could go on it, and I'm not begrudging the fact that we didn't. We got something that we weren't expecting, but because we are fans and we like to talk about it, there are lots of songs that have leaked onto streaming, but haven't actually been officially released. Things like Triggering Your Senses, as I mentioned earlier, some of the Pat Leonard and Mia Wace tracks. But we have got 3 tracks on it that I mentioned that had some sort of release at the time, but it's the first time they've been included on this package. So the first is Fighting Spirit, which I really, really love. I listened to it the other day for the first time in years, and I'd forgotten just what a good song it is. It feels very American Life, which isn't surprising because it was a Mia Wace track. And there was a demo of it, and all these demos that we're going to talk about are on YouTube. Do dive deep and listen to all the different versions. But then I think Stuart came along and confessionified it a little bit. And I think it was quite possibly considered for release on the Confessions album at one point. It certainly feels of these 3 extra tracks, it feels the most polished, and it's got some great lyrics, great vocals. And I think that ended up being released on a re-release of Confessions that came that Christmas. Also got Super Pop, which I think might have been the B-side for Jump. Now, Super Pop is a great track. It's another Mia Wace track, and the lyrics based on the game If I Were, and there's some very funny lyrics from Madonna. I don't know if either of you have listened to this track lately.
It falls into my canon of Madonna boasting songs.
Yeah. I, her ego is slightly out of control in this song.
A little bit like Iconic, and where it's the listing and the comparison, so it feels familiar, and I think I like it for that reason. Again, like a little bit of Vogue with the listing of the movie stars, it's got that core Madonna truth to it. But I think the thing that I do hear in both the ones you've said, it's the staccato American Life. She doesn't sing, she doesn't speak. It's this weird halfway. Whereas
Yeah,
the rest of the album, she very much sings or
yeah.
talks.
It's a bit like Mother and Father in that it's got that
Yeah,
staccato
yeah.
sort of feel to it. Yeah, some of the lyrics are a little bit cringe. We were listening to it, me and my husband, the other day, and it's the first time he'd heard it. And there's the line, "If I were an actor, I'd be Marlon Brando," and he's like, "Madonna, you were an actor, and you were not Marlon Brando."
There's one bit that you might be able to answer this for me, but it's, you know how I say, like, I can't really hear things, I only feel them, because
Yeah,
it's the first time that I've heard it in a long time. You get to 2 minutes in, and what's the lyric? It's just ooh ooh yeah. But I was like, oh, there's something in that. I'm singing something else, and I can't work out which person it's coming from. And then all of a sudden, I realised there's a very slight moment where it turns into the ooh yeah every morning, every night, from between deeper and deeper into why is it so hard in the girly show. And the ooh yeahs, you can literally sing into that little bit. And once I'd heard that, I was like, there's something in that, that if she'd have kept going with the ooh yeahs every morning, every night, it went back to that flashback of the 70s disco scene. And I was like, oh, that's the bit that's getting me excited, but it's so fleeting. And then you just keep hearing the ooh yeahs through the end of the song. But it's one of those things where when she doesn't put much effort into lyrics on first drop, I often think she self-references quite a lot. And because this never got re-recorded and tidied up, I was like, I wonder if they were just the first thing that popped into her head and she was referencing earlier work.
yeah, and I think she might not have even been doing it deliberately. She's got melodies in her head, and it's all of it comes from her upbringing, in Detroit and all those artists that she would have been influenced by. Yeah, that's very interesting. Or maybe it's a deliberate Easter egg that she's
But she
done.
waited 20 years for someone. Love that. The other thing I didn't know, Mia Ware had actually given it to someone else for another album.
Yeah, I think it went around the houses a bit before then Stuart worked on it and sorted it out. Some of the research I've done recently, I think I was always under the impression that she'd started an album with Mia Wace and then stopped and then did Confessions, but actually they were all working together, Bloodshine and Vance as well. And I don't know if the plan always was for Stuart to come in and sort of give it a homogenous sound, but the Mia Wace stuff was still being recorded into the summer, and we got the album in the November as well. So
Because even the original version of Get Together, there's a darkness in it that Stuart lifted out and gave it the French house feel. And so when I hear the original of Get Together, it doesn't give me the euphoria. So I think his ear and his Europeanness, it really, really helped on a few of the songs and took I don't mean this negatively, but took the dirge of like the I Love New York and the like grit, and he polished some of the songs that were a little bit, so like what he did with Sorry as well, where I think they reworked the chorus or the verse so they weren't as similar, and again it just lifts it and gives it that just much more positive feel about it.
and it's interesting because the third track is a Madonna Stuart Price, and that's History. I think that got released to Icon members, and that's really quite weak, actually. I don't know if you've listened to that one again recently, but there are some other versions. Again, search on YouTube, and I think the second demo is much better than what they released. I'm not particularly keen on that song.
I mean, what I love about this period that we're getting is I kind of like it when all the loose ends are tied up. So I'm glad that we're getting some packaged, releases, which are vinyl and also these digital releases, and going back to the singles and giving them proper light of day. But I think Madonna, when she's strongest and when I love the work the most, is when it's almost a little perfect presentation. And Confessions is, the original album, like you're saying, with the production and her working so well with one key collaborator to create a sound, works. And I think there is a reason these songs are left off. I don't think they would have been stronger if they were on the original album, but I'm so glad that we got them. And what I
Um,
feel about that period too is there were so many, I mean, so many incredible remix tracks. And, if I look at the vinyl that I've got from the time with extended mixes and the Pet Shop Boys and, Stuart Price's remixes, I mean, I guess that could be another record in itself of just the dance versions. And so, yeah, it's cool to have it with those additional tracks too.
I think that's what physical allows you to have, though. So you could have having the physical re-release would have meant that there could have been a second disc, or so. Like, I do think it's a shame that so things like the Sorry version and the Get Together, they would be great to actually have because they were presented to label. They were finished enough for label to hear it. So they must exist, and they do exist because they've been leaked. But it would be really nice to have sort of because it's digital. There's no length problem, or so. Yeah, I sort of wish because it was only digital, we could have just had a little bit more because we've got these things if we bothered to put our CDs in. So it would have been nice to just sort of have those extras that were bubbling under, or we were wondering about. That's my only wish.
Yeah, I think it's good that it's curated though, because there are some artists that I follow, and they'll have a release which seems to have everything on it, and it's like the TV version, it's the hard end version, it's the long fade out version, and it's sort of. I never listen to it all. In fact, when I download those limited editions, I sometimes delete some of them off my streaming because I just want to be able to listen to the album, maybe with one or two extra tracks. So, we can't be satisfied. Nothing can make us happy.
No, I think Danny Minogue re-released her 20th anniversary for Neon Nights, and they handled that really well because they went back to like a few of the DJs who'd worked on it at the time and got them to rework stuff. So it might have been nice if she was in the studio with Stuart, that maybe they could have. Or I still, like, now that I've been introduced to ABBA, I kind of had a fantasy in my head that there could be a Gimme 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 with a Madonna sample in it. That would have satisfied me as well.
Of course, we've been to ABBA Voyage. We should briefly talk about that because it feels relevant to this. So, back in August, the three of us got together and we chose ABBA Voyage as our excursion. I've been many times. It was my fourth or fifth time. It was JDP's second time. And Peter, it's your first time. And as you just mentioned, you're not really much of an ABBA fan. So I feel you have to lead by saying what you thought of it.
I think the reason that I hadn't seen it was because I was put off by a lot of like the um, things like the movies and the musical. I was like, oh gosh, it'll just be something like that. But as a non-contributing ABBA fan, I was blown away by it, more so because of the tech and the ambience and the ideas and the theatrics of it were just incredible. I've never seen anything like it. I couldn't find a fault with it. Not that I went there to look for fault, but when people create things, your eye can sometimes be drawn to the thing that. But considering that you can tell me that they weren't in the room, but I call you a liar. They were right there in front of me. So many clever techniques that were unexpected, things that I think other live acts could easily borrow. So they had like beauty shots of the performance, like camera work that radiated around the auditorium, but the lights and the way that everything was arranged always brought you back to the center screen. It was just I've never seen anything like it, and I cried twice, emotionally moved, and would definitely go back and see it again. Absolutely incredible.
And JTP, that was your second visit. Was it different the second time around for you?
It was even better. And you've encapsulated it so perfectly, Peter. Beyond just the ABBA connection with Hung Up, obviously, what first came to mind when you mentioned ABBA Voyage is the Madonna Grammys performance with Gorillaz.
Yeah, yeah,
Thinking about technology difference. I wonder, did they call it a hologram in that time? Or was
yeah.
it just on the screen?
It,
Because obviously,
it was marketed as, and then you were like, oh, okay, yeah.
yeah, you're trying to use a life-size thing with the weaving in and out of the gorillas. But I mean, we have come a long way in 20 years. The technology is incredible. And for numerous reasons, the first time it didn't strike me as strongly, and then the second time, I mean, you mentioned all of the points I was thinking, Peter. Technically, it's pretty breathtaking. I think we all chatted actually afterwards about how Madonna could potentially do something like that in the future, and they must have obviously remastered the songs and the way it is arranged, and the stadium is built, or the arena is built for them, that they can get everything perfect. I think if you know zero ABBA songs, you would still be moved by the music.
Totally.
It's so compelling.
Yeah.
It has a very strong emotional heart, and ABBA, the band, are very much part of it. And I think if Madonna was to do something like that, she would have to be very much part of it, because that's why it works. And okay, it's not really ABBA, but it was them for 6 weeks. They, in their late 70s, got together and sang the songs and performed the songs. And I think some of the dancing may have been enhanced by other people. I'm not sure that Frida was able to do those backflips when they were in Stockholm back in 2018. But yes, it's an astonishing show, and it so would be perfect for Madonna. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? So going back to Confessions, and I did say in the intro, Jonathan, I'd ask you about the new cover picture. Now, the original is by Stephen Klein, and then this new one is...
Well, what I love about the discourse online with Madonna fans is they're always digging for information, and you can get little nuggets. And since that time, I've seen so many people discussing this shoot where, apparently there were 12 setups for all of the Confessions material. And of course, only one of the setups, kind of one, ended up on the main album. And then this red sequin dress, I think, was used for the video visuals and then some promo around the time, but was of course not used in the main setup. Apparently, yeah, it was late 2005, and what I like about all of these is it was a very distinct visual referencing time. We had John Travolta very clearly, ABBA beyond just the music, visually as well. We saw that character through the tour too, of course. And then with this dress, which I think Peter will pick up on later, is a reference to the Tina Turner look from the Acid Queen. And I think with something like that, what I like also is it's not that obvious. It's kind of a more subtle 70s reference. And it picks up the energy, the life of nightlife. I think it reflects really well the music. The dress is designed by Jeremy Scott, and apparently he worked quite closely with Ariane Phillips to develop some of these looks. And Stephen Klein, a longtime collaborator of Madonna, said that after more than 50 shoots together, he was commissioned on this to focus solely on disco and 70s music, which was quite different to how they'd worked in the past. And if you think about what they'd done previously, one of the larger projects, one of my favorites from 2003, the Ecstatic Process, that ended up becoming a book, you really see the diversity and how different they can make it. And actually thinking about it, even with these photos, there's quite a variety from the first album to this photo shoot to the other press shots that end up getting used in magazines like Elle at the time. And I love it. I've seen some people online both loving the re-release artwork and also hating it. It's obviously a redesign from the original shoot. Peter, you might be going into this a bit more, but you can find the original photographs online, obviously. I'll come back to my opinion on whether it was better as a photograph or redesigned.
Well, before I go to Peter about the design side of it, Madonna was with Stephen Klein very recently, so she posted to her Instagram, she appeared to be at a Halloween party as a desperate housewife and was being murdered by Stephen Klein. And that's led a lot of fans to wonder if she's working with him again on the photo shoot for the new album, which would make a lot of sense. And he's someone that she's continued to work with. And of course, we don't know how closely this new album is going to reflect the original Confessions. But in terms of the design of this 20th anniversary edition, Peter, give us your thoughts.
I kind of like that like Jonathan says, it was an underutilized visual, but was incredibly strong. So she has real fluidity and movement in those shots. So the ones that are in Confessions are actually quite static. For a dance album, they are very subdued. So it's her with a disco ball and her with a chair, but they seem to lean more on the they seem to lean more on the like ballet styling and the mirrors and the bar and the practicing of like the scenes in Saturday Night Fever. Whereas the thing that I love about these images is this is Madonna actually in the club. So it's more reminiscent of like the Susan character, the one that's like on the dance floor. So the ones that he captures of her, I'd love to know what track was playing, because she is dancing. You can tell there's a real sort of movement to the poses. The actual visual of it was, I think, considered at some point for the Get Together video, but then was superseded with the Coco animated one. But the visual reference like has gone full circle, and that is the Tina Turner one that we're talking about. So on the actual album cover, it's the original with Tina Turner is Acid Queen, and she's in the identical red dress that Jonathan referenced from the Stephen Klein shoot, and she's even got the little red glittery pumps as well, which I think Madonna is wearing a slightly classier version of. They've separated the title and the artist by using Tina's body as the dividing thing. So I think the thing that is nicer about the Madonna one is the keeping everything central. So I think it's a great reference visually, and I think it must be one of the ones that she was playing with at the time on the mood board for what she did with Stephen Klein. Because it's such a perfect. So it's really nice that it is aping something that already exists graphically. Madonna's handwriting fits in again. Like always, it's not exactly as I would want it. I hate the fact that the top hand is missing. Could have like photoshopped something, or if it just happens to be that it was cropped off in the original, I would have liked to have seen that put back in. Something that would annoy most designers, though, is around the time that Confessions was released, there was a very well-known website called DaFont, and it is very much maligned and misunderstood, as the Ebenezer Good lyric says. It was an excuse for people who were not very design savvy to create typefaces of their choosing. So one of the ones that got created was someone will have scanned in every letter from the Confessions album cover and created their own typeface. And unfortunately, the 20 years later line is written in that font. So the reason that good design works is because you're supposed to have a tension between two things. So on the original, the Madonna icon is so hard and static and illuminated. And then that plays off the fact that Madonna's is cursive, soft, and friendly. So the harshness and the softness work really well. The little line underneath that says 20 years on, I think if that had been a copy of like the Futura inspired Madonna title, you just would have kept that hierarchy and that play. Whereas using the font, it just feels lazy. And I know that I've got a friend that I talk to who actually has an entire Instagram account of like the redesigns, his Madonna repackaged, and he'd made exactly the same point. His work is beautiful, and he's done a version of the Get Together cover for a single that's so similar to the one that we've got for 20 years later. And I just wonder if maybe somebody had seen that and borrowed it, but his is more beautiful.
Absolutely. So yeah, Confessions 20. I'm glad we got it. It could be better, but I think we have an insatiable appetite. And if we are going to get surprises like this every now and then, I don't have a problem with that at all. So I
No.
got something very exciting in the post the other day, and now this is going to be difficult because we are going to do an unboxing, and I'm very conscious that not everybody is watching this on video. Although if you're not watching on video, I don't know why. I'm going to unbox something, a package that Peter sent to me, and try and explain it to everybody. First of all, Peter, thank you very much for sending me a package. I was very, very happy to receive your package through the post, as it were. And it came in this 12-inch folder. I'm putting my glasses on for this. And there's a little embossed stamp at the bottom of an M. And that colour, that looks familiar. That's very much Immaculate Collection colour. Of course, that album has just turned 35 years. So I'm going to open this 12-inch sleeve now. And you can talk me through, Peter, what this is. So, okay. Oh, gosh. So I've got... This is beautiful. It is a white vinyl sleeve with the holes cut out in the middle. And rather than a record label, I'm seeing your Queen's head design that
Yeah.
features Madonna's head, very much like Queen Elizabeth's head, on stamps and coins. Oh, wow. This document certifies that the accompanying artwork is an original limited edition screen print created by the artist Peter Falloon, and each print in this edition has been hand-pulled, signed, and numbered by the artist. And then the artwork is an absolutely stunning reproduction of that. It is definitely Immaculate Collection inspired in terms of its colours. And this is fantastic. I'm going to get this framed, Peter. Thank you so much for sending this to me. This is just absolutely wonderful. Do you want to tell me and everyone that's listening a little bit more about what this is?
Yeah. So I still love the image and I love playing with it. And like one of the things that's been a real bugbear this year is just the AI thing. And like we've just discussed, everything being digital. So it's been really nice to go back and revisit something that I used to enjoy, which was actually making things. So to go and do some screen prints and actually have the joy of watching something appear. And for anyone that doesn't know what screen print is, it's basically how we used to do everything print wise. So it's they take your work, they turn it into a photographic screen. Depending on the number of colors, you might have 3 or 4 screens that are all laid up, and then you pull each ink through the screen, allow it to dry, pull the next one. So it's how I feel such a dick saying artist, but I was told that that's the only way you can describe it because I am a graphic designer, but in this instance, it is a piece of art. Um, it was just really nice to do something real and like to have the object at the end, and then all of the other bits are really just to satisfy like my need for um like nice things. So doing the certificate and the bits and pieces, packaging it up into something that felt reflective of an album that is 35 years old and is probably the greatest hits of all time.
Without a
Very true.
doubt. Oh gosh, and look at that embossed golden certificate as well, which you've signed. That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I know there are going to be people watching that are going to want to know how they can get hold of one of these as well. Um, will they be able to get them at our event in London on the 29th of November?
They will be. They will be available for anyone to purchase at our event in London on the 29th of November 2025 at the Raw Vauxhall Tavern, London.
Absolutely perfectly done, and didn't feel like an advertorial at all. Hey, Madonna's all about making money, so why shouldn't we be? I'm really looking
Is there
forward to it.
anyone else
Sales have
that
been
will
really
join us?
good. The RVT keep getting in touch saying, gosh, this is going really well. So I don't want to worry people too much because there are still tickets available. But yeah, do get them soon. They're £9 and it'll be £10 on the door. So for anybody that's not aware, we are hosting a listening party in London for the Untold Chapter, which is the new additional release of Bedtime Stories with the demos and a couple of remixes on it. We're going to do another one of these episodes live, the three of us talking. We're going to be joined by Julio, who wrote Madonna Songbook. who has heard some of those Shep Pettibone tracks, and I think we're going to need to try and persuade him to sing them on stage. And he's going to be talking about bedtime stories and its creation. We're going to do a quiz. We're going to have some merch, as you said. Hopefully, Julio is going to have his book, the songbook there, which he's going to be able to sign for people. And then we're going to have one of JDP's incredible discos. And have you been planning your what you're going to play, Jonathan?
I have been. Well, I already started by asking you guys if there are any special requests. And I actually do think these are quite special moments because it's very rare that you could hear like some strange remix from a 1994 song by Madonna in a club environment. So we got to like fully wring out the experience that we can. So yes, I've been planning. I do think I'll maybe throw in some curveballs and maybe some other songs from the 90s that are influenced by her, influenced her. But all ones that will get people on the dance floor.
Oh, that's brilliant, because obviously the 90s is such a broad period. I mean, we could literally go from a I'm Breathless track into a Ray of Light track, which would be incredible.
I mean, if you think about starting with Vogue and ending with Beautiful Stranger, just the 90s, like what a decade.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. And we hope to see as many of you as we can on Saturday, 29th of November in London at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern from 3 p.m. And get there for 3 as well, because we're going to be playing the Untold chapter first before we get into everything else. And there's a lot to squeeze in, and I want to dance to a lot of your songs. And I've got a party to go to afterwards as well. So I might be having a drink and a dance or two myself. It's been great to talk to you, and it's great to do an emergency episode. Who knows when I might have to do another one. Maybe she's going to drop something again this Friday. I mean, it is the Immaculate Collection's 35th anniversary. So
not even had a mention.
Yeah, that is quite unusual. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen there? But thank you for your time. I hope everybody's enjoying having this episode and watching us as well. And we hope to see as many of you as we can in London at the end of the month. But for now, from me, Edward, and from
Jonathan
and Pete.
Yeah, we need to work on our presentation style a bit before the 29th, I think. Thank you very much for joining us.